Making St. Louis cleaner and greener. Operation Brightside next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Well, from daffodils to Project Blitz, Operation Brightside or Brightside St. Louis has been making our community a better place to live since 1982, and we'd like to welcome now that organization's Executive Director, Mary Lou Green. Hi, Mary Lou.
Hi, Steve. Good morning.
Happy spring.
To you as well.
It took a while to get here this year.
Absolutely.
You as glad as the rest of us?
Absolutely.
I brought you a special present today, knowing that you were going to be my guest on the table. And I wanted to point out, that because I've already been accused by several people here of stopping along Highway 40 and picking these. I did not. I took these out of my garden. Because, of course, you guys are famous for flowers that look just like this along our highways.
Absolutely. We have planted over 14 million daffodils since the program started in 82.
How many?
14 million.
Wow. 14 million.
14 million
Is
daffodils.
it and counting?
Yes. Every year we plant more daffodils.
Well, you know, I'm not the only one. I don't know, there's something about driving along Highway 40 or whatever highway it happens to be and seeing the first signs of spring with these yellow daffodils popping up all along the exit ramps and on-ramps. And it's sort of special.
It is, and I have to tell you, I always tell people, it's the only time you ever see people smiling as they're driving down the highway.
But don't stop on the highway and pick them.
Please don't.
Right. Those came from my yard, just want to make that point. Well, Operation Brightside changed its name not all that long ago. You're Brightside St. Louis now. Why change the name after all these years?
We tried to rebrand it and make it fresher and cleaner, and we incorporated the daffodil into the logo, and Brightside St. Louis. It really says a lot about what we are.
Well, you do so many things, and we've got a lot to talk about during the program. We're mentioning the daffodils now. That's just one small thing that Brightside St. Louis does, because you're busy all year doing everything from beautification projects like that to neighborhood cleanups and everything.
Yes.
So let's begin with a citywide cleanup program, and this is something that I think you used to do only at specific times of the year. Now you're doing it all the time, Project Blitz.
That's correct. Project Blitz is our citywide cleanup, and it was always on designated days every spring. And what we've done this year is try to get back to the original intention of Blitz, and that is for neighbors to get together and work together to clean up the alleys and the public spaces in their neighborhood. And so now people can, whether it's a block unit or just folks on a particular block or the neighborhood association, they can pick their own day. And then Brightside will provide the tools and trash bags that they need for cleaning up. And then we also have flowers for planting on public property.
But again, that cleanup element, that can happen now. It can happen any time of the year, just when, I guess, a group of neighbors get together and decide it needs to be done?
Exactly. And it used to be limited to the spring. Now, if they want to do a cleanup in the spring, summer, and fall, they're welcome to do that, and we can still support their efforts. But it really comes down to neighbors getting together, neighbors working together to make their neighborhood better, because they live there,
Right.
and they can make the difference.
And particularly when you're in an urban area, stuff just happens. I mean,
Yes.
people aren't necessarily dumping trash outside, but I guess during garbage pickup, things can blow out of a person's. I mean, there are a million different ways, right?
Sure.
That stuff
and-
ends up on the streets.
Well, and just think of the winds that we've had recently. I mean, just because somebody threw the piece of trash down 6 blocks away doesn't mean it's not in your front yard today.
What can people expect if they want to get involved in Project Blitz? I do my own little version every couple of weeks. I go out and there's always a candy wrapper or something out on my sidewalk, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I wonder if the neighbors get together and they decide it's time to do something. what are the parameters? Do you need a certain amount of people? What's the process that you go through?
We have a Project Blitz registration form on our website, which is brightsidestl.org. And if they go on the What We Do tab, it says Project Blitz, and they can get the project registration form. And basically, they just need to tell us who they are and what they want to clean up.
I've got one right here, by the way.
Perfect.
So I was going to go through that with you. Do you need a certain amount of people?
No, we don't.
I was sort of surprised, not surprised really, but it's pretty detailed information you want to know, and I'm sure there's a reason for that. Stuff like, contact information. Then you decide what you want to do, cleanup project, beautification project, or both.
Correct.
Right? And then you ask them to describe the project. You ask about the number of volunteers and how and where you're getting the volunteers. Why do you want to know that?
First, we like to know if they're getting neighborhood volunteers or if they're bringing in groups from outside, because we get a lot of groups that contact Brightside that, they don't live in the neighborhood, but they want to be able to help with some type of community service or community improvement project. So we're able to team people up with neighborhood volunteers for cleanup projects. But beyond that is we want to know who all the people are so that we're making sure that they're getting the appropriate number of tools. If you have 20 volunteers, you don't need 40 tools.
Right.
So sometimes people need to think through that.
Do you ask people to use their own stuff?
Oh, sure.
I mean, if I've got a shovel and a rake, would you prefer me to bring it than to ask you to borrow one?
Actually, most of the neighbors prefer to use their own so they don't have to come to Brightside and get it. But in a lot of neighborhoods, people don't have the big push brooms that we do and enough rakes for, all of the kids and stuff that might come out.
One thing I do note, though, that if you do borrow tools from Operation Brightside, they ask for a date that you return them. It's important you return them at that date.
Yes. It's important that you pick them up and return them on time so that we have them for the other volunteer groups.
So if I'm on the block and I decide I want to do Project Blitz and I talk to my neighbors about it, do you put one person in charge like that, or?
We do, yes. Typically we work with a block captain or someone who's designated themselves as a block unit leader or somebody on the block who's willing to take control. Because a lot of times it just really depends on who's going to step up on the block and take some leadership and talk to their neighbors.
So we need a good bossy neighbor maybe to take the reins.
Usually there's a block there. Every block has one.
I know. I can tell you who it is on my block. It's not me.
But you do what they tell you, don't you?
Sure I do. Well, we're sort of early in the year, early in spring. Have you seen much Project Blitz activity going on yet? Are there certain times of the year where you are more active with that?
April has really stepped up with a lot of people that are volunteering, and we have a lot of groups scheduled for May, and so we're just looking at getting more and more scheduled as we go on.
So, and we'll have contact information come up during the break and at the end of the show, so people should visit your website. They can find out more about anything that we're talking about here today. Let's talk about graffiti.
Yes.
Part of what I keep wanting to say Operation Brightside. Brightside St. Louis, part of what Brightside St. Louis does, one of the little programs they do is to get rid of graffiti that people don't want.
Yes.
And here's an example. And you and I were talking, I see some graffiti, and I know it can be inappropriate. This one isn't particularly nice, but I've seen some that are very artistic. But the bottom line is, you don't always want graffiti on every building.
Correct. You don't want graffiti on every building, and if you're the owner who has graffiti like this, you certainly don't want it on your property, no matter how much artistic value it has to it. And that's what's really a shame, is that people are wasting their talent and vandalizing other people's properties.
They could be working for an ad agency, and they're
That's
doing
right.
this.
That's right. And so Brightside removes graffiti at no cost to the property owner, and we remove graffiti from almost 4,500 vandalized buildings, businesses, public spaces every year.
Wow, is that harder than it sounds? I guess it's normally done with spray paint, isn't it?
They put the spray paint on and then we remove it. If it's on a brick or concrete surface like you saw in that picture, we're using a power washer to remove it, and a chemical to loosen up the paint. And then if it's on a painted surface, then we paint over the graffiti.
What's the city's position on graffiti? Do they classify it as illegal? I mean, can you be charged or fined for doing it?
Yes. It's a violation of the city building code, and it's a violation of the city building code to keep it on your property. And so Brightside provides that service in between, because once someone's vandalized by graffiti and then they're required by the city to remove it, then we can provide that service for them at no cost to the property
That's
owner.
great. Let's talk about celebrating St. Louis's 250th anniversary. And I love all the what do they call, the cakes and things
Yes,
that you see all over
yes.
town? I think there are 250 of them.
Yes, there are.
Right. And are you guys involved in that at all?
Yes, Brightside has an STL 250 cake, and it's right at the
And it's not real
intersection.
cake, I should mention.
Correct. They're 4-foot tall fiberglass cakes, so don't try and eat it. But ours is across the street from our office and next to our demonstration garden at the corner of Kings Highway and Vandevenner. And it features a lot of the different components of our demonstration garden on the cake. And people are welcome to come by anytime and see the cake. And the other thing that Brightside is doing this year in conjunction with STL 250 is our goal is to plant 250,000 flowers this year.
Wow.
Yes.
How many volunteers do you have over a year's time?
We have, over a year's time, we have about 20,000 hours, volunteer hours invested in our projects.
And you're going to be doing some planning downtown on the 17th of May this year?
That's correct. We will be planting downtown on May 17th, and if anybody is interested in helping us, we encourage them to visit stlvolunteer.org/Brightside St. Louis or call us at 314-772-4646.
You know, there's a lot more planning behind this than I think most people would think. I'm an amateur gardener, and I know gardening is more than just like plopping down plants wherever. I mean, it has to be planned out and designed and thought about.
It does. And that's what we try and do with lots of our different programs with Neighbors Naturescaping. And then this summer we're having something called the St. Louis Urban Gardening Symposium. And we'll be talking about things just like that you need to plan a garden. You can't just throw plants in the ground. And they might live, but you're going to have a lot more success if you actually plan it and care for it.
Believe me, I've learned the hard way in my yard. So yes, planning is very important. We want to take a little break, and we'll have your contact information come up too, and we have more to talk about. Brightside St. Louis with Mary Lou Green, and we'll be back right after this.
Experience St. Louis.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. We're talking about Brightside St. Louis, formerly known as Operation Brightside, with Mary Lou Green, that organization's executive director. And they're busy all year, as we've made that point. Just to recap, Mary Lou, a few things we talked about. Project Blitz is a way that people can get together and help clean up their neighborhood, their block, something that goes on all year, and all you have to do is get some interested neighbors together and contact Operation Brightside.
Correct.
And you can help with the planning and providing stuff they need, like tools and things, right?
Yes.
And I also wanted to mention too, May 17th, you're going to be planning downtown. And you need volunteers for that, right?
We do need volunteers for that.
You're going to meet at 13th and Market Streets in the morning around 9 a.m. And what would you want people to know that might be interested in helping them? to do that?
Anybody that's interested, we'd like to know ahead of time so that we can plan and make sure we have everything we need for all of the volunteers that are going to be participating. So they could call Brightside at 772-4646 and let us know that they want to help.
Okay, we talked earlier about the tulips, not the tulips, the daffodils that I brought from my yard, just like the ones that Operation Brightside St. Louis has planted all over town. And you have some certain areas that people may drive by and not realize that's your deal. One demonstration garden in particular, but you have several areas. Talk about that.
Correct. Our demonstration garden at the corner of Kings Highway and Vandevenner features all Missouri native plants in natural habitats, and we use that as an educational outreach establishment. People can come in anytime, and there's interpretive displays so that people can learn more about the different components. This is a picture of the demonstration garden.
And now where exactly is that again?
At Kings Highway and Vandevenner. At the entrance to the hill,
Right.
Because we're across the street from Don Brown Chevrolet. And he'll tell you it's at the entrance to the hill. And it features all Missouri native plants, and in that area out there, that's our outdoor classroom, and we have workshops there. This summer, on June 21st, we'll have the St. Louis Urban Gardening Symposium there.
And I know from my amateur experience as a gardener too, you talk about native plants, and the reason you do native plants is because if you put plants in that aren't native, you're fighting with them, they may not survive. So using native plants is the easiest, probably lowest maintenance thing that you can do.
Sure, and it's working with nature instead of against it. And it helps save money for people who are planting them because they don't need all the fancy fertilizers and pesticides, and so you're reducing chemicals, in the ground, polluting the groundwater, things like that. So all those things, really benefit, and native plants are absolutely the way to go. And a lot of times people used to think they were not pretty. You visit our demonstration garden and you'll see that we have some very beautiful native plants in Missouri.
Right, we don't need palm trees along Highway 40 anyway, that'd be silly.
That's right.
Speaking of that though, you've got another neat area along Highway 40, you'll have to pinpoint it for me exactly. But it's beautiful, and it's really come a long way over the last few years. That fountain area?
Yes, we call it Lake Louie, and there's a little lake with a fountain there, and then there's some big expansive gardens.
So that's like Highway 40 and...
The Chestnut 20th Street exit.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's just outside of downtown. It's a great welcome mat for people coming into downtown, and there's big gardens there, and they're all maintained and planted by Brightside volunteers.
Well, Brightside St. Louis was known for many years as Operation Brightside, and you've been at the helm for a couple of decades. I hate to say it that way.
Thank you. I don't feel old at all now.
Well, kettle black, kettle black. But your mom actually was involved in the very beginning.
My mother actually started the program. She was the very first director. She founded Brightside, and she had been at Ralston Purina, and the mayor went to Ralston and asked that she be provided as a loaned executive to start the program. And so she did that, and she got Brightside started, and that was in 1982. And then in the mid-'80s, she left and took Brightside to other cities. And so Louisville, Kentucky, and there's several other cities around the country that also have Brightside programs. And then there were several directors between us, and then I took over in 1990.
And what was your mom's name?
Lucille Green.
Lucille Green.
Yes.
I've known you for a million years, and I'd never really thought about it until recently, how appropriate your name is. Do you get teased about, your name is Green?
Yes.
I mean, it couldn't be more perfect, right?
I tell people I changed it.
Used to be Smith.
That's right. I needed something more appropriate for my job.
It really works. Let's talk about a program that you have, Neighbors Naturescaping.
Neighbors Naturescaping is an awesome program in that it helps community organizations or block units improve the public spaces in their neighborhood. And so with Blitz, they can clean up. With Neighbors Naturescaping, they can plant, and we have all natives again, perennials, grasses, shrubs, and trees. And it really transforms the look of a neighborhood.
And so how's that different really than the other things that you do?
This is all perennials, And then with the annuals, we provide.
What are these folks doing here?
Oh, what's really important about Neighbors Naturescaping is that neighbors are committing to take care of their project for the long term. And so these people were from the Women of College Hill project, and they were at Home Depot picking out the supplies that they were going to need to take care of it. So they're getting a hose reel and some other supplies that they need to make sure that their garden is watered and weeded and cared for. And so with Neighbors Naturescaping, groups can get up to $1,500 worth of plant material and supplies, and up to 40% of their total request can be for the hardscape and the tools that they need to make sure that their garden is taken care of.
You mentioned the College Hill neighborhood.
Yes.
That's a good aspect to bring up a little bit about what not only the plantings but the cleanup does for a neighborhood. Just the spirit of the neighborhood. Let me put it this way. Some neighborhoods struggle more than others.
Yes.
Have more issues than others, whether it be poverty or dilapidated buildings or whatever it might be. But whether you live in a fancy neighborhood or one that's not so fancy, when neighbors get together to improve it, it really does make an impact.
You hit the nail on the head. That's absolutely right. And any neighborhood, the strength of the neighborhood is depending on the people who live there and them knowing each other, working together to make a difference. And that's exactly what happened in College Hill. You know, that group got together because they wanted to make a difference in their neighborhood. And that's what we encourage people to do, whether it's Neighbors Naturescaping or whether it's Project Blitz. Whatever we can do to help support that is what Brightside tries to do.
And I don't want to, make too big a deal about it that's going to solve all neighborhoods' problems, but I think it is a first step.
Absolutely.
If a neighborhood feels warm and cozy, nicer things happen there.
Absolutely. And there's studies that show that when you live or you're in a neighborhood that's cleaner and has beautiful flowers in it, you feel safer, you feel more comfortable, and instinctively we do that. And so what ends up happening is the property values go up in neighborhoods that are cleaner and greener.
You know, I saw it in mine. I bought a house about 22 years ago, and a couple blocks, I live in a pretty nice neighborhood, but I lived on a couple of blocks that really had seen better times. And I almost didn't buy a house there because I thought, oh, it's kind of a little run down. But I really noticed this. Once I moved in and started doing things, fixing up the yard, fixing up the outside, I noticed that a lot of people, my neighbors, people I didn't even know, once they saw somebody start to do some things, it created an energy, and they started to do things too.
Yes, and that's what Brightside's all about, is let's start working together, let's start getting, making sure that we're working in unison so that we can clean up neighborhoods, we can make them more beautiful, and that's what we're trying to do. And it really is about, kind of that domino effect.
Right.
When you start doing it, then other people will do it, and
Now-
it really makes a
Yeah,
difference.
now we're trying to outdo each other.
What a good problem to have.
I know, that's right. Hey, there's something new this year too, that I guess is going to be an annual thing. This year, it's on May the 6th, STL Gives Day.
Yes, it's the website, I believe, is givestlday.org, and it's it's a effort in conjunction with the Greater St. Louis Community Foundation. And 24 hours on May 6th, they're asking everybody in the St. Louis region to select their favorite charities and make online contributions. And so we're hoping to raise millions of dollars for over 500 not-for-profits in St. Louis. But of course, we would love for people to donate to Brightside.
Yeah, well, you were talking about the hundreds of thousands of flowers that you plant. You're not for profit. Where does your money come from?
We get a federal grant that comes through the city's Community Development Administration, and then that covers about half of our costs, and then the other half is raised privately through contributions from individuals, foundations, and corporations.
What about St. Louis Urban Gardening? It's a symposium, right, coming up in June?
Correct. June 21st is when we're having the St. Louis Urban Gardening Symposium, and it will be in Brightside's demonstration garden at the corner of Kings Highway and Vandeventer. And anybody who's interested in participating in that are encouraged to call Brightside, and we'll have a link on our website so that people can register for that, because that will be something they'll need to register for. And we'll have several different sessions so that people can learn about planning, planting, caring for their garden.
Well, Brightside also is reaching out to young people. You have a Young Friends organization. How important is that?
It's very important. We get a lot of volunteers who come into and get involved with Brightside when they're like in college, for example, and then people, once they get established in their neighborhood, then they get involved. But there's that gap where we don't really have people in their 20s and 30s involved in Brightside. And so the Young Friends of Brightside St. Louis is kicking off now, and if anybody's interested in being a part of it, we encourage them to contact us, because they're really going to get involved and do some neat things for our community.
So whether it's volunteering for that or Project Blitz or any of the things that you do, there's something really any time of the year that if you want to get involved and make St. Louis a better place, a greener place, a cleaner place, you can do that through Brightside St. Louis.
Absolutely.
Well, Mary Lou Green, thank you so much for coming by in this beautiful spring. I hope you enjoyed your flowers.
They're beautiful.
I thought that's probably the last thing you need is more daffodil.
No, absolutely, they're beautiful.
Thank you for being here, and we love what you do. And Operation Brightside, formerly Operation Brightside, is now Brightside St. Louis. Mary Lou Green, thanks again.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of City Corner. Thanks for watching. Join us next time. Bye.